Bring it on in. It might be our first edition of 2025. It's been a little while since Sean Barnard and I have sat down and talked a little picks and roll here as we're going to this afternoon. Brace Sean Barnard. Sean Barnard covers all things Sixers and the NBA for us here on The Gambler, among other things. He's a jack of all trades, a lot like all of us here on The Gambler gang. Sean, good afternoon. How are we doing today, sir?
Doing well. My spirits are higher in the Sixers world than they maybe have been all season. So 4 in a row. Sounds like Joel Embiid may be coming back soon. Pretty intense warm-up from him yesterday. Like, seriously, the most intense that I've seen during his entire tenure in Philadelphia, which was encouraging by my eyes there. Tyrese Maxey back to looking like Tyrese Maxey, the all-star caliber guard that he is. 12 consecutive games with 28-plus points. Sixers taking down 4 straight. Solid opponents here. The Bulls kind of the bottom feeders there, but a team that they needed to beat as they're now locked with the direct exact record for that last spot in the play-in tournament there. So the vibes are turning around a little bit from the Sixers team and some good hoops going on across the league.
What, 36 games left?
About that. That sounds right.
Yeah.
Slightly under 40.
They're gonna strut backwards into this bad boy, aren't they?
Oh yeah.
So
we're
gonna talk about that. Of course, the big picture item for us is definitely the 76ers and 4 in a row and what we could take away from it. And starting with Tyrese Maxey, as you pointed out, trade deadline. We're going to hit on some of the NBA rumors that are out there. We'll talk a little all-star game as well and see if we can find some winners and definitely some things that are on the horizon as far as the NBA is concerned. But I do want to start by saying this. Yeah, that there is a reason why we haven't recorded. It's two parts. Number one, full disclosure, we've been busy as hell with football.
Yeah.
College football, NFL, you name it, on it.
Sixers very appreciative of that as well, that the Eagles dominate in the headlines.
And number two would be that the 76ers have not been living up to any of the hype coming into this season. So with that, let's get it started here. Of course, we'll open up with what took place last night. And you pointed it out, Tyrese Maxey leading the way yet again. The kid is an absolute stud. I'm so happy to see him smiling out there, just having, joy again, taking the floor and of course, doing what Tyrese Maxey did all of last year and the year before, and ultimately is going to find himself in an all-star game. I'm pretty sure that you would be in agreement with me on that one.
I'm a little nervous. I kind of don't think it's going to be the case. I think I'll put it this way. I think if all-star voting was pushed back 2 weeks, I think there'd be no doubt about it. I'm worried that his slow start and based on where the Sixers sit in the standings, that he doesn't kind of back his way into there. His play of late, absolutely all-star caliber. And again, I think if the timelines were slightly different, there'd be no doubt about it. But I think it's going to be a bit of a toss-up here.
12 games. That goes back to how long? 3 weeks?
Yeah, but he had the slow start to the season, really struggled shooting from the field. And I mean, the Sixers as a team, the record kind of speaks for themselves there. So there's a lot of talented guards. Cade Cunningham taking the lead, Jalen Brunson, obviously Tyrese Halliburton. There's a lot of names that have their case. LaMelo Ball certainly deserves a spot in my mind. So I do hope Tyrese gets in, no doubt in my mind, but I'm not as confident as I would like to be.
LaMelo Ball, huh?
Dude, LaMelo Ball is an all-star. Should be.
He shoots a million times a game. His team is terrible. He's not a winning player. Is he an all-star? What makes him an all-star? Because he can score?
He's averaging 28.2 points, 7.3 rebounds, 7.3 assists, 5.3 rebounds, 1.4 steals per game, shooting 33.7% from three. So not great efficiency, no doubt about it. I would push back a little bit on him not a winning player. He's entertaining.
Not a winning player.
It hasn't proved to be.
He's so selfish. Come on.
I wouldn't selfish. I don't think is fair. He's a good playmaker. He's a very good playmaker. He's a creative passer. I think LaMelo Ball, the perception of LaMelo Ball is worse than the reality.
Full disclosure, I'm not like racing home to fire on a Charlotte Hornets game. So let's just start there. But his coach is lost. He can't handle him. That organization, now they're dealing with some injuries. Of course, Brandon Miller's done. Yeah. Is he done for season, right? I think
there's a chance he comes back this year, but it's going to be months at the minimum.
I'll tell you what I'm not going to do is fight the fight for LaMelo Ball. So if you want to knock yourself out, he's got a long way to go. It's early in his career. He's immature. You can agree with that, right?
Sure, no doubt there.
He just got hurt showboating. Didn't he get hurt showboating? Wasn't that, when they were down 16 in the second quarter, he hits a 3-pointer. He runs back. His coach says he runs back. He's getting back on defense. No, he was showboating after hitting a 3, being down double digits, a la Jaden Daniels. And the next thing you know, he's now hurt. Look, again, let's not, I don't want to get too carried away because I haven't watched in great detail. From afar, this is what I see. But I will trust your judgment. You pay attention to the league a hell of a lot closer than I do. So if you tell me that you think that, you got to admit, like, again, I have to admit this, that he is young. He could grow into something if he actually cares to win. He has to change his way. There's no way that's a winning style of basketball. And I refuse to believe that, even though Charlotte isn't asking him to do X, Y, and Z, like, still he can't get the ball going a little bit more. And the numbers are there from the assist standpoint, but I need a little bit more from him if we're going to talk about him as an all-star. That's all.
I hear you. I'll say this, like, I don't think Charlotte has done him any favors as far as the situation that he's been put in and kind of the lack of structure. He's basically been allowed to do whatever he's want, and I don't think that's the best, pathway to put LaMelo Ball on. So I think, like, when we see the best version of LaMelo Ball, it's probably not in a Charlotte Hornets uniform. That I think that probably sometime in the future he finds his way to a little bit more prestigious franchise and the success follows it such. But I will. Not the Wizard. I will continue to buy some LaMelo Ball stock. I'll put it that way.
Okay. Will LaMelo Ball ever win a championship?
Definitely not on the Hornets. I would probably take the under on that one, for sure.
All right. Well, let me ask this: is LaMelo Ball more of an all-star than Tyrese Maxey in your mind?
I would say no to that, but again, we got to factor in the voting started a little bit, and just going numbers, like LaMelo averages more points, rebounds, and assists than Tyrese. Like the people are going to view that. The same people that have not tuned into a lot of Hornets games are going to see that right there and jump on it. And like, relative to expectations, yes, the Hornets are bad, but they were not. The Sixers can very fairly be viewed as the biggest disappointment in the entire NBA this season, and I think that will get held against Maxey, whether that is fair or foul.
He's shooting 33% from downtown. I don't know.
Maxey?
No.
I don't think Maxey's is much better. Maxey is shooting 34% from downtown this year.
Well, how many shots does LaMelo or does Maxey get up per game?
From the arc or overall?
Give me overall.
Overall, a lot. He's averaging 21.5 field goal attempts, 9.7 3-pointers.
LaMelo, 12.3 3-pointers, 23.3 field goals.
Yeah. So they're in the same tier, I would say, that not as players, but based on production this year.
Okay. All right. That's a good discussion. Look, I didn't think we were going to get into that debate, but this is where we're at right now, this part of the season. So back over to the 76ers, Sean. And, the thing that was hitting me today, getting into this hit with you here, was that, bottom line is, regardless of what I have said, regardless of my stance, I'm not changing anything. It's been so disappointing, so disheartening, so frustrating. Look, these last 4 games, and I think, did Paul George play any of these 4 games? No, he's been out of all 4. He played one?
And the first one is when he hurt his pinky, I'm pretty sure. He played the first half of that one.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll count it. But for the most part, it's the young guns. It's Yabusele out there, Oubre, it's Maxey, and like, I'm watching this game last night and I'm coming away going, all right, boys, like, let's go. Now, does that mean that this team is going to get into the playoffs without Paul George and Joel Embiid and make a damn difference? No. I'm not here to sing that. So, like, that's where the rub comes in. So, like, as I sit here right now, let me ask you what your message is to Sixers fans on January 30th. For somebody like me who's been pessimistic beyond belief, just blow it up, get rid of Paul George. You're not going to be able to move Embiid, so it is what it is, almost to the point that, like, I realize if he can come back and play, that's a great thing, but to the point that I'm, like, even saying to myself, sit Embiid down for the rest of the season, give him the year off. Maybe it might be the best thing for him, his body, so on and so forth. Not a doctor, but I'll play one here on the podcast. And I'm just asking, like, what would be your message right here, right now? Because even if I want to believe, I still, like, have that in the back of my mind, like, Joel Embiid's not going to stay healthy. Jimmy Butler, he's got his not Jimmy Butler, sorry. Paul George has his moments, but, like, the pinky, we're missing games for a pinky. And I know it was a bad injury. Still, does he have that dog in him? Is he able to stay healthy? So I almost feel like here's the rake. Poof, I'm going to step on it. It's going to smack me right in the face again. What's your message to Sixers fans right now?
Yeah, so for starters, to stick up for Paul George a little bit, it seems like it's a ligament issue in the pinky that makes it hard to make a fist, which I guess does change my perspective slightly on it. That it did to me when I saw it live look like a jam finger, and it's kind of one of those like, come on, man, if you're struggling to make a fist out of it, I can kind of hear the case a little bit more, and that like obviously does impact the way you dribble, the way you hold a basketball, all those type of things there. So we'll see how soon he's be back. It wouldn't surprise me if this is like a week or two or potentially even longer that he remains out. I'm more optimistic of Joel coming back, but as far as my message overall for this Sixers team, to me, for the first time all season, we're seeing them play with a desperation. That I love the quote from Kelly Oubre following that Lakers win, that basically asking what changed in the Sixers team. Like, what it does feel like there has been an attitude shift. And he basically said, we're sick of getting beat. Like, we're sick of getting our butts kicked, and we're turning things around. And that is the story of this season, that all these issues, yes, injuries headline things, but for the wider scale, they've been internal things. This team has played sloppy basketball. They haven't competed hard enough, and it has been different over this last 4 games. I get that's an incredibly small stretch, but I give Nick Nurse a lot of credit. I was pretty hard on him at the start of the season. He directly called out this team after that Nuggets game, which by my money's worth was probably the most embarrassing loss of the season. The other one, the Pelicans loss, you have a case for that as well. But as far as just not showing up and look like they did not care whatsoever, that Nuggets game was the peak for me. And following that game, both in the locker room, we got reports of reporters overhearing him basically cursing out the entire team. And then Nurse steps to the podium and says those direct same things, saying the effort was unacceptable. We looked like we didn't want to be there today. There's going to be games where that happens in the NBA, but it is unacceptable for that to be the case based on where we stand in the standings there. And since that point, the team has responded, that I have seen a hunger from them, that these guys are playing hard. They are playing connected, and you're not going to reach your peak until you get all these pieces together, get Joel on the floor, get Paul George on the floor. But it does feel like there's been a bit of an attitude shift, and the team's responding to Nick Nurse directly challenging them, which I will view as optimistic there.
All right. Yeah, look, 7 straight losses, and that last one against Denver was, the one that the straw that broke the camel's back, I guess you could say. It was a disaster and embarrassing to be a Sixers fan, and I'm sure to be on that bench, be associated with the franchise and be the head coach of that team, putting that effort out. So maybe that was the change that the Sixers needed at that point in time. But let's just be realistic, too, about their opponents. And I know Sacramento is a decent team. Lakers were coming off.
They beat Cleveland at the start of this.
Did beat Cleveland. You're right about that. Bulls. I was working backwards, so I didn't get to Cleveland. Sorry. So they deserve respect there. You're right. So that's where I'm at right now. It's like, okay, where are we at as far as formula? If you were to go ahead and tell me the ingredients, like the success that this team is having right now, will this be a continuing trend in your mind? Regardless if Embiid comes back, regardless if Paul George comes back, which I'm sure Paul George, what is the latest with him with that thumb? When do we expect him back?
They haven't laid out a timeline. He was out there shooting before the game yesterday. There was another wrap on the pinky and things like that. So I'm curious. I mean, again, we know it's like trying to get an injury report from the Sixers team or a direct answer on any of these things. Andre Drummond, I mean, hasn't played in like 13 games, and all we've gotten is injury management here, which like, what are we even doing for a backup center? But the point being with Paul George specifically, I think it's probably like a week or two, and then he's back out there full strength. Again, I have a little bit more sympathy with kind of the ligament knowledge and that is an issue there. You need these guys out there. There's no way around it. But as far as like this team as a whole, they can beat anyone on any given night. And I think we're also seeing some of the vulnerabilities across the league. Cleveland showing some signs of slipping of late. The Celtics have not looked as dominant of late. Jaylen Brown having some struggles there. Each team's got weaknesses, and this Sixers team is still kind of scrapping out and finding a way. So it hasn't been perfect, but I'm not ready to. This ship isn't sinking the way that it kind of felt like a couple weeks ago.
The Sixers making the playoffs.
They are
1 through 6. 1 through 6.
1 through 6. So to kind of lay it out again,
the play-in is not the playoffs. That's not the playoffs. The playoffs is 1 through 6.
So for my TikTok bet, for the clarification here, if they get out of the play-in and into the playoffs, I still cash that. I'm not ripping any.
Yes, that counts. You're right. 100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
But as far as them actually cracking a top 6 seed, I don't think the chances are zero. I mean, they're 4 games out of that 6 seed right now. The Magic currently hold that. They're 24-24 on the year. Sixers in 19-27. So obviously some ground to make up there. They're exactly tied with the Bulls, who currently hold that 10 seed. Bulls have played a couple more games than the Sixers, so they're below them in the standings, but tied for that last 10 seed there. And then 4 more games, and we're talking about being into the actual playoffs. So it's all on this team to continue picking up and fighting, but the pathway is absolutely there.
Yeah, of course. I look at it. The Heat, they're a disaster. The Pistons are playing poor basketball at this point in time. They should be better. The Hawks,
Jalen Johnson just got hurt.
Yeah, you're right about that. Bulls, they beat them. They're 20-28. Then you go Sixers, and then it's just the rest of the league. So the Sixers should be better. I totally agree with you. But just something is not connecting this year with this franchise. Now, was that a first half deal? Get to the All-Star break, get everybody back. All of a sudden, But see, this is the issue, and I'm not going to bite into this. I'm not going to allow myself to take a bite of that apple, a piece of the cookie out of the cookie jar, whatever you want to say. I'm not going to do it because Joel Embiid's going to come back, and it's just going to change everything. And when it does, he's not going to remain healthy, and the team's going to be like, oh, he's back. And it just changes the mentality of this franchise, top to bottom, the players on the floor, and we're going to be doing it all over again. That is just one man's take. I totally allow anybody and everybody to dance on my grave. If I'm wrong, good. I hope I'm wrong. I haven't been wrong quite just yet. They lost 7 in a row. They just won 4 straight. Great. I'm happy. It's fun. It's entertaining. I could tune in and watch the damn game and not be mad at every word that comes out of Kate Scott's mouth. Understood. But I have to be realistic. And if not a part of sticking to my guns, it's just what was hitting me in November. It's still hitting me right now on January 30th.
Will it change your mind when tomorrow Joel Embiid steps out there and gives Nikola Jokic 40? Because I think that happens.
Dude, he's not playing against the Joker tomorrow. No way. No way.
You want to put a Gatorade bet on that one, Sean?
Gatorade bet. Yep, absolutely. Gatorade bet that he is not playing tomorrow versus Joker at home, correct? That's a home game?
I'm pretty confident he is.
That would be great. But and you know what? It probably would be in his best interest to not. Because he's not in shape. Come on, man. No way. He's not ready.
He's not going to get in shape just sitting there.
Yeah, well, who's the next opponent after that? That doesn't have
Boston.
One of the. I would rather him go out there against Boston, even though the Nuggets are beatable. Just lost a pretty good game last night to the Knicks. We're going to talk a lot about the Knicks coming up here in just a minute. But the thing I would say is that you're going to get a hungry Joker. He's going to raise his game up because of what just took place last night. And, oh, by the way, facing Embiid. All eyes on that matchup, as always. We'll see. We'll see, man. I've been poisoned this year, and I'm the negative Nancy. I get it. But, it's just year in, year out, same song and dance, and it gutted me. So here we are. They can continue to win. I hope they do. I'm pulling for this team. I love Tyrese Maxey. Let's focus on him here. Maxey deserves all the shine, as I slated here to name the episode. What's been the difference for you over these last 12 games with Tyrese Maxey? Is it just a matter of, hey, man, these shots were eventually going to fall? Are they running different sets? Has he been more aggressive? I don't think he's been more aggressive, has he?
Yeah, I think some of it's a little shooting variance coming back to the norm, that he's just straight up a better shooter than the numbers have indicated this year. This has been a guy who's been top 5 in 3-point percentage for 2 whole seasons of his career and was shooting below 30% from 3 for a good part of the season. So some of it is just coming back to normalcy. And as dumb as it sounds, I think a lot of it is just attitude. That when you think of Tyrese Maxey, you think of a smiling, happy guy who's playing with joy. That really was not the case for a lot of the season. There's been a whole lot of referee complaining, throwing the hands up, frustrations being quite visible out there on the court. That has not been the case over these past 4 games. And to take it a step further than that, I've been really impressed with his ability to encourage teammates and be a leader out on the floor. There were multiple times yesterday where it really stood out to me of him clapping in his teammates' face, uplifting guys. And I think that he's kind of returned to a little bit more of the true version of Tyrese Maxey, playing with joy, having a positive out view. And I think that translates in his play. what I would kind of point to as evidence of this is think about the contrast of Jared McCain and how much his personality and positive shined while he was on the court while playing right next to Tyrese Maxey. That was kind of like striking to me. And I think we're seeing Tyrese Maxey return to being the guy that is that positive force, that leader of the franchise, the dude that they need to follow this guy. And I think he's settled back into that. So I think the money and the pressure of not having, his teammates around him with Paul George and Embiid kind of got to him to an extent. And then a lot of it was just the shots not falling, but he's absolutely back to being the all-star caliber guard that we know him to be.
He's aggressive, getting to the rack. It's fun. I didn't really see. I saw him being aggressive earlier in the year, but there was definitely a reluctancy to it as well at times. It was just only natural. But he knows it's do or die time with him out there, and it's real easy to see that with all love and respect. Again, though, they're winning these games. They deserve a lot of credit right now for turning it around. We'll see if this can continue. I know Sean's painting a rosy picture, and I appreciate that. He's been very, maybe the most optimistic out of all of everybody in the Gambler gang. The Sixers currently are 19-27. That's all I'll say. That's all I'll say. Now, help me on this one. Just jab me, because I do not want to get carried away with this discussion because people are already turned off by it. But Jimmy Butler, and we brought it up the other day because of the story that was put out there by Vincent Goodwill from Yahoo Sports. It wasn't us throwing something up against the wall. Like, yeah, that's been discussed. Jimmy Butler for Paul George straight up, like as a hypothetical barroom discussion. Fine. But this was actually a little substance, right? That was just to say, hey, preliminary discussions. You immediately said there is 99% chance along those lines that this is not happening. Good. We covered our bases. We got a lot of pushback, though, on that, which was just crazy to me. And the big pushback was the contract. So I just want to dip our toes into the NBA contract waters. First of all, when somebody says to the point that why would the Miami Heat take on Paul George's contract? Now, again, we didn't say that they would, but is it out of the realm of possibility that the Miami Heat would take on Paul George's contract? I just say this. You tell me if I'm wrong on this. My answer is, bro, it's called white flag. Now, I know Pat Riley's Pat Riley. But man, they just got to be done with it. And if you're telling me this is a team that they still think can win, and you could pull Paul George in and replace it, like maybe there are people out there saying Paul George is as good as Jimmy Butler when healthy. Maybe there's people out there saying Paul George is better than Jimmy Butler when healthy. Playoffs, we understand. But what do you say to the, like, am I off base to even suggest that the Miami Heat would take on that contract? And in part two of that, Sean, is this: NBA contracts essentially don't mean a damn thing at the end of the day, man. I know they do. Don't take that as literal, but we've seen some crazy contracts and teams get out of them. Horford, Simmons, the Harden stuff. We were talking about it last night, texting. You brought up a couple cases. Your thoughts on that as far as the Miami Heat having any interest in taking on that Paul George contract?
Yeah, so I'll say contracts mean more now under this new CBA than they ever really had before as far as the restrictions that come with them. One of the key, I would guess, driving forces in this entire Jimmy Butler conversation is obviously the Heat being unwilling to give him an extension. Now, one of the foundational seeming beliefs of Pat Riley is he's not going to give long-term money to guys over the age of 35. And that is what is going on with Paul George. With Jimmy Butler down there. Paul George also fits that category. If the Heat were to consider this, it certainly comes from we're just done with the Jimmy Butler business, that we just want to move on. And Jimmy doing quite a good job of making sure that is the priority, to make sure that I want no part of being here, and everybody knows that. That message has been loud and clear and received by everyone on this entire earth. So if you're the Heat sitting there and saying, we just want to wash our hands of this dude, we're sick of everything that comes with Jimmy Butler, which there's a lot behind the scenes, more than even has been made public here. You can look at it and say, we get Paul George, we get the rest of this season and 3 years beyond this to kind of recoup our investment. That's then the asset we're holding on to. I'm not going to, you can have your preference for Paul George and Jimmy Butler. They're very different players as much as I don't know. You can kind of word that however you want there. The point being, if you're the Heat, they're never going to be interested in a full rebuild. They view themselves as a destination franchise, and rightfully so. They're in Miami, and they've had success bringing in these big-ticket free agents. You still got Tyler Hero. You still got Bam Adebayo. Khalil Ware playing incredible basketball right now. There's other talented guys on that roster. Terry Rozier has underwhelmed, but a guy that we know can play. So if you're talking about still giving yourself kind of a chance this year, Paul George still does that. So if you're the Heat, that's how you're talking yourself into it. Also, another thing I want to squash, because I've seen plenty of this in the comments in all of my platforms here. Paul George does not have a no trade clause, and I have no clue where that came from or why people think that. There are 2 no trade clauses in the entire NBA. Those belong to LeBron James and Bradley Beal. I don't know why people have that connected to Paul George at all, but that has never been the case or was ever really discussed. I think Paul
How doesn't Steph Curry have a no trade clause?
I mean, so the NBA, the collective bargaining agency and the Players Association, they don't want to go down that path of trade, of that being like a thing of people having a no trade clause there. Bradley Beal, pretty unique situation where sort of this dance with the CBA that we've seen is this kind of battle between the system is set up to players control their destiny in free agency, teams control their destiny when they're under contract. So what has become kind of the theme is the NBA has set it up to reward players for staying with franchise. That's where you can sign these supermax deals, these extensions. You get more when you're a homegrown talent. We've seen players kind of try and get both ends of things here, where they opt into that contract, they get their max money, and that's when they request the trade. Now, from the organizational standpoint, you can view that favorably as well, because the guy's not just leaving. You're getting something in return, even if it's not, 1-for-1 value because of the situation you're in. You're at least bringing something back. So with that has been a whole lot of dances. The new CBA is going to change that in its entirety as well. But the full kind of answer there is the NBA does not want no trade clauses to be a thing. And it's kind of a unique that these two have got it. LeBron's obviously LeBron, and Brad Beal benefited from getting every single benefit of sticking with Washington as long as he did.
Well said. Yeah, I'm glad we got into that, because at the end of the day, I get it, man. And this is kind of going back on what I just said, but it is difficult to make trades in the NBA due to the contract matching, the dollars for dollars, and then these aprons, that's whole deal. But like I also said too, man, this league, they make it happen, just like in the NFL too. Training, what's the word I'm looking for? Payroll, when they got the
salary cap.
Salary cap. Good grief. Sorry, man. My daughter's down for the count, man. I've been all out of it this morning, so I'm running around like a maniac. I apologize. But the salary cap, they're shifting numbers all the time in the NFL. So it's like, is it really that constant? Yes. But at the same time, we do see teams make moves and some things happening. So something to keep our eye on. Trade deadline coming up here, of course. That is a big topic for everybody in the NBA. One more as far as the NBA trade deadline is concerned. De'Aaron Fox, I know you're a Fox guy. You kind of pushed me a little bit more to being on his side, because I was disappointed with how this all took place, and specifically from the Kings' perspective, where you fire Mike Brown and then now the player still wants out, and you got it wrong. Like, you have to look yourself in the mirror and go, man, we screwed up. De'Aaron Fox, though, wants to go to San Antonio. No surprise there. We knew that people would want to go play for Wemby. Why not? The thing that I have is like, wait a minute, he's a free agent next year.
Right.
So, like, if you have like this list, if you're the Sacramento Kings and you want this player, that player, no. The San Antonio Spurs cannot do that. They cannot afford to do that. If you were going to give him, make the trade and give him that new contract, which I'm sure that would go hand in hand, no. You can't lose Castle. He's the real deal. So where do you stand on that conversation? Do you think it's important for him to be with the Spurs as soon as possible? Or do you think, hey, man, just play the season out and get to free agency here?
Yeah, so like reflecting on the same conversation I had about like the order of operations with free agency and trade requests, De'Aaron Fox has kind of gone about this the right way. That he's been with Sacramento for 8 years now, that he's paid his dues there, and he has declined contract extensions. The way that he has phrased it to this point is basically to see the game plan or the plan of the organization moving forward. He's made it crystal clear he wants to be on a contender, and rightfully so. Who doesn't want to compete in these things? And that's what De'Aaron Fox is saying. I think it's fair to assess with 8 years in Sacramento that I don't really see a world in which they fully get to that level that he seemingly desires to. Yes, they traded for Sabonis. Yes, Malik Monk is a good player. They brought in DeMar DeRozan. They've done some things that I like as an organization. When you look around the Western Conference, man, you're never going to be as good as the Thunder, the Dallas Mavericks, the Denver Nuggets. There's a lot of very good teams that it's going to be really difficult to reach that level. So I think Fox sees the end in sight. He's told the organization that he doesn't plan on re-signing. So if they want to get something, they can trade him. He wants to be out of there. And I understand it from all parties there. As much as like, I think Fox is a very special player and frankly, a little underrated in the conversation for how good that he is across the hierarchy of the league, but he's not going to reach his peak as a player with a Kings jersey on. And I understand it from all parties here. I think it was a mistake firing Mike Brown. And I think the Kings are going to have some tough decisions to make moving forward. But I don't really fault Fox for this. I think this is the way it should go when we're trying to get yourself out of an organization.
All right. Great stuff, Sean. Nice breakdown there. Anything else as far as the trade deadline is concerned? Is there a name that we're not discussing? Is there a player that you feel like will absolutely make a difference? I saw Vooch might be on the way out. I think he would be a nice fit in Golden State. He's a good player no matter what. Is there a player that you think would be a big-time difference maker for a team if he lands there?
Yeah, I mean, Butler is going to be the number one domino that I would say falls, that everyone seems to be waiting on those big ticket things. I still kind of lean toward it being unlikely De'Aaron Fox is traded. Could happen, and that very well could be tied to the same deal. And Bradley Beal, for the same reason we're talking about the no trade clause, seems pretty firm on that he's not moving off that. So he's going to get his money and continue playing for the Phoenix Suns if that is the case. There's nothing the organization can do to supersede that or go around that if he doesn't want to be moved. And that's why they try hard to stop it. So I think we still will see some movement across the board. I think there's going to be a lot of teams trying to get under aprons, duck some tax, save some money. And more particularly, I think we're going to see some of the bottom feeders, the teams like the Hornets and the Wizards, facilitating these trades to help teams get off money and kind of stacking up assets that way. So there will be some trades that go down. I would say probably a lot of head scratching trades that pop up that you got to think like, what is the actual reason for that? And the answer is probably going to be money to some extent in every one of those. So stay tuned for that. But I don't think the Sixers are going to be heavily involved in too much.
All right, got you for another 2 more minutes here. First and foremost, we do have a little bit of breaking news around scary Terry Rozier, who is currently with the Miami Heat, and I know he's with the Celtics. Yeah, so he was with the Hornets from 20 to 24. He was with the Miami Heat last year. He got traded. That's what it was. That's right. He got traded to the Miami Heat.
How we got Kyle Lowry. The Sixers ended up with Kyle Lowry because he was a part of that deal and then bought out.
Very good. This is on David Purdom, covers sports gambling for ESPN, a Wall Street Journal article here. Federal prosecutors have been investigating whether NBA player Scary Terry Rozier, I put the scary in there, manipulated his performance as part of an illegal sports betting scheme. The inquiry is part of a wider government investigation that has already ensnared Jonte Porter. How about that? So
this is for this season or last season?
He's wearing a Hornets jersey in that picture, so I assumed that was a connecting deal there. Unfortunately, I do not pay $2 a week to subscribe to the Wall Street Journal, so I can't read the article. I'm sure that we will get more information over the next few hours about that, and yeah, that's going to be talked about a lot on ESPN, and that's definitely not good for the league. Again, man, you're going to get caught. That's all you got to say is you're going to get caught. All right. Once again, Sean Barnard, you can find him at DK Network over there. Great content across the board, including our good friend Stevie Bukes, how to create the WWE Royal Rumble pool, Sean Barnard. We're going to have our Royal Rumble roundtable hosted by Nick Bacone, Jason Vanelli, Vaughn Johnson, and John Jansen coming up on Friday evening as we're getting ready for all things Super Bowl coverage in the next week. But we got Royal Rumble. It's going down on Saturday in Indianapolis. So check out the content at DK Network. Sean Barnard 1. Yep.
Steve, I don't know how well you know him. I have never spoken to him outside of a Slack chat here, but if you do get a chance to talk to him at some point, there was a whisper passed through the DraftKings group chat that he has some connection to professional dodgeball. I would love to hear what exactly that means.
It doesn't shot. He's a play-by-play guy for wrestling.
Okay.
He probably has something to do with that. He probably calls like professional dodgeball leagues.
Okay.
I don't all love and respect to Stevie Bukes. I don't really see him playing dodgeball, but I could be off on that. I'm not playing dodgeball, bro. I'll be breaking my leg, snapping an ACL, whatever it is. So, but God bless him if he is out there dodging balls. Hey, if you could dodge a wrench, you could dodge a ball. Sean Barnard, give us one winner on the way out here. We got 5 games in the NBA. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got the Hawks and Cavs. Cavs 10-point favorites at home. Lakers, Wizards. Lakers 8.5-point favorites on the road still. T-Wolves 7-point favorites on the road in Utah. Rockets catching 4.5 on the road in Memphis. That's the game of the night. In Orlando on the road still 5.5-point favorites taking on the Trailblazers.
If you wanted to decide, it would be Rockets plus 4.5, but my best bet of the day would be Amin Thompson over 17.5 points tonight.
Kid's a stud.
Yep.
Kid's a stud. So are you, Sean Barnard. Great job across the board. continued kick a button, taking names for all things DK. We'll catch up later this week. Always a pleasure. And as always, people, if you missed anything, at foxphogambler.com.